Creating a pop-up window on your website can be a really effective marketing tool. Pop-up windows grab attention and they can be really useful when trying to grow an email list. The problem with pop-ups though is that they can be kind of ugly. It's hard to get them designed the way you want them to because generally the CRMs that we use don't give you much control over the design. But with Elementor's pop-up builder, we can really customize our pop-up windows to make them look really great. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a pop-up window that gets people onto your MailChimp email list. Let's get started. This is what we are going to be creating today. This is a very simple pop-up window. It just has a headline, some text, and a form that collects a name and email address that will then be populated onto our MailChimp list. If you are familiar with Elementor though, you know that you can customize these widgets and pop-ups however you want, so you can really go crazy with the design and make it look really customized. Now this is specifically for Elementor Pro. This tutorial only works if you have an Elementor Pro account. If you are using the free version, you do not have the ability to add MailChimp integrations and stuff like that. So I do recommend getting an Elementor Pro account if you want to have this functionality. It really is worth it. First thing that we're going to do is log into our WordPress dashboard, and then we're going to go to Elementor and then Settings. From Settings, we're going to click Integrations. What we need to do is connect our MailChimp account to our website. And we do that through an API key that we generate through MailChimp. If you scroll down a bit on the page, you'll see that there's this field for MailChimp and it says API key. Now I've already pasted my API key in here, but if you need to do that, you'll log into your MailChimp dashboard, which I have opened up over here. Then you'll click down at the bottom left-hand corner where your little profile picture is, and you'll go to Account. From Account, you'll want to go to Extras and then API keys. If you haven't generated an API key yet, you'll click this button that says create a key, but as you can see here, I've already generated a few keys. If you have generated a key in the past, you can use that same key to do this. You don't have to create a brand new one. And all you have to do is copy your key, go back to your Elementor integration settings, and then paste it in here. You can always click this validate button just to make sure that everything was pasted in correctly. And then you can scroll down to the bottom of the page and click Save Changes. Now, just a word that you can use MailerLite, you can use ConvertKit, all of these other different services are all built into the integrations for Elementor. So if you are using a different service, you can still do this. It's not just for MailChimp, we're just using MailChimp for this tutorial, but know that the process is basically the same no matter what you use. You just create an API key from whatever service you're using, paste it into the appropriate area, and click Save Changes, and that will connect your website to whatever CRM you're using. Okay, so now that we've done that, we will go to Templates, and then we're going to click Pop-ups because we need to create a new pop-up window. So we're going to hit Add New, and then you'll see it says Pop-up here, so we want to make sure that that's selected, and then we can name this whatever we want. I'm just going to call this Pop-up MailChimp. And we'll hit Create Template. What will pop up are all of these different pre-designed pop-up templates, which is really cool. Another really great feature of Elementor Pro is that this is all built in. So if you're not a designer, you can use one of these and just customize it to however you like. It kind of gives you a starting point. So this is a really great feature and another reason that I really do like Elementor Pro. But for this example, I'm just going to design it from scratch because you can do that too if you want. So we have this pop-up window here, as you can see, and I'm just going to start adding widgets. This is just like any other Elementor page. You have your widgets on the left and then your page on the right. In this case, it's a pop-up window. I'm just going to drag over a heading, and then we can customize that to say free web design tips. And I am not the greatest typer, as you can see. We'll go back to our widgets and drag over some text, and I'm going to say subscribe to receive free web design tips delivered to your inbox every week. And as you can see, we can style these however we want. I'm just going to make this text a little bit bigger because it's kind of small, but I think that looks much better. And then we're going to, again, go to our widgets, and we'll want to add a form now. So we're going to drag over our form, and this is just the standard form that Elementor has, but we don't need to have a message field because this isn't emailing us. This is subscribing people to our list. So we can just get rid of this altogether. And I'm going to style this a bit so that the fields are side by side. So I'm going to click on name. I'm going to go to column width, change that to 50%. I'm also going to make this field required. Then I'm going to go to email and do the same thing, make sure that it's set to required and change that to 50%. So now everything is side by side. I like that much better because it's a little bit shorter, it just looks neater. Now I'm going to go down to where it says buttons, and I'm going to change this from send to subscribe. That just makes a little bit more sense than having it send. I'm going to style this up a little bit more. I'm going to change the label text size to make that a little bit bigger. I think that looks better. And then I'm going to change the button so that it doesn't have rounded corners. So I'm going to set the border radius to 0. And then on the hover, I'm going to set the background color to this kind of bluish green. So I like the way that looks. Now I'm going to style up the entire section, add a little bit of padding around the whole area. So you go to advanced to do that. I'm just going to add 40 pixels of padding to the whole area. I'm going to make that 30 instead because I want everything. Let's try 20. That looks better. I want everything to be on one line. And then overall, I just want to add some widget space because everything is kind of crunched together. So I'm just going to change that up. And I think that looks pretty good. Like I said, this is a very basic pop-up design. You can go crazy with the design of your pop-up, but I want to keep things simple just to show you how easy it is to create these. Okay, now that we have the design figured out, we need to actually get this to work correctly so that it goes to MailChimp. So we're going to go click on our form window rather, and then we're going to go to content, and then we're going to do actions after submit. So this is really where all of the magic happens. So right now it says collect submissions and email. So we're going to get rid of both of those because what we want to do is actually import the information into MailChimp. So we're going to click on MailChimp here, and then underneath you'll see this MailChimp box pop up. We'll click that, and it has a field for API key and it's set to default. We want to keep that as the default API key, the one that we pasted in earlier. The audience will select from whatever list we want. So I have a few lists in here. I'm just going to put in website opt-in for my list. And what pops up now is you can start categorizing things into groups. That's a feature that's built into MailChimp. And then you can also tag people. So if you were using this for something specific, like a download or a coupon code, you could tag people and it will tag them when they go into MailChimp so you know where they came from. This is a really cool feature. You also have the option for double opt-in. I'm going to check yes to that. So what that does is that when somebody opts into the list, MailChimp will send them a confirmation email making sure that they actually did want to opt in. You don't have to have this clicked on, but I do recommend it because double opt-in is always kind of best practice. The next thing that we want to do is do our field mapping. So this maps the fields on our form into MailChimp. So it basically tells MailChimp where to put things. So the email field, we'll want to select email, and then down here where it says first name, we'll want to select name. Then we're going to scroll down to additional options, and we're going to click custom messages because we want to customize the message that people get once they submit their information. So right now it says the form was sent successfully. We can change that to thank you for subscribing or something like that. You can put in whatever you want. And then after we're done with that, we're going to hit publish. Now on publish, there's a bunch of different conditions that we can set for how we want our pop-up window to display. So we can add a condition that says include this on the entire site. So no matter what page a person goes to, once they land on the site, your pop-up window will show. Or we can say that I only want it on archives or singular pages. So whatever we prefer. The next thing that we're going to want to do are triggers. Now triggers are really cool. We can do this on page load. If we click that, it'll say within a certain amount of seconds. So we can have it where it doesn't pop up automatically. It pops up after 5 seconds or 10 seconds, whatever we decide. So if you click that, that's the options that you get. On scroll, when somebody scrolls down the page, we can then have the pop-up window open. You've probably seen that on some other sites. So that's an option that we have as well. On scroll to element is another option, and we can then put in a CSS class from whatever page we're on to say once it gets to this class, show the pop-up. So that's a really cool feature as well. We can have it go on click. So if we click a specific thing, it will show up. After inactivity, so if somebody's just on your page and not really navigating anywhere, they're just kind of looking at stuff, a pop-up can come up after a certain amount of seconds. We can also do on-page exit intent. So what that means is that if I try to click off to the page, so if I go to click this X, it will pop up and say, hey, wait a minute, don't leave yet. Here's a pop-up to subscribe to my list. So we can set whatever we want for that. So I'm going to pick on-page load, and I'm going to set this to 5 seconds. Now the next thing we have are advanced rules. So this is another really cool feature that's just built into Elementor Pro. So we can show this after a certain amount of page views. So if people keep coming back to our site, clicking around, they can see a pop-up after that. So we click yes, and we can decide how many views that is by changing this number. We can say show after a certain amount of sessions. So kind of the same thing, but that's more if you come to the website, you leave, and then you come back. We can say show up to a certain amount of time. So maybe we don't want the pop-up to always come up every single time a person comes to the site. So that's how we would control that. We can also do it when it's arriving from a specific URL. This is a really cool feature, really, really great for marketing, because if you are running ads and you're running ads on specific websites, you can set up these pop-up windows to show when people come from that page. So this is a really great feature. What we would do is click yes on here and say show or hide depending on the URL, and you just paste in whatever URL it is. This is a really great feature. I love this. I love that they have this in Elementor. We can also say show when arriving from some different places. So we can do search engines, external links, or internal links in here. We can decide what we want off and on there. So that's another cool feature. We can hide this for logged in users as well. So if we don't want to see the pop-up constantly, if we're working on our site, we can just click this and then we don't have to see it all the time. It just kind of makes it a little bit easier when it comes to editing if you plan on doing a lot of edits to your site. We can also say show on specific devices. So if we don't want things to show on mobile, we can check this off, tablet, desktop as well. And we can even say only show on specific browsers. So if we don't want this to show on, let's say, Google Chrome, then we can click everything but Google Chrome, or we can just say only show on Google Chrome. We really have a ton of possibilities when it comes to designing your pop-up window. You can really customize this, and it's all built into the Elementor page builder. So just wanted to go through all of these different things so you have a feel for how this works. And once you are done with all of your settings, you'll just hit save and close, and that will create your pop-up. So if we go to our page, I'm going to open this up in a new browser window. It's our site, and our pop-up shows up. So it's really cool. A lot of really great functionality available within Elementor that we can use to create some really custom marketing features. I want to cover a few more things related to the design before we go, and that is under the settings tab. So if we click on this button down here in the Elementor editor, it'll pull up some additional settings for our pop-up, including the width and the height. So we can use this slider to adjust that. We can do it by pixels or by vertical width. We can also change the height to fit to content, fit to screen, or we can even put in a custom option there. And then we also have the positioning. So right now it is in the center of the page, but we can change that. We can change this to go to the left, top, right, bottom, wherever we want it to go. So a lot of great options for positioning. And then the overlay, we can decide to show that or hide that. So if we hide it, it kind of gets rid of that dark background. And then the close button, same thing. We can show or hide that as well. So you can see the X in the corner goes away when I have that hidden. We also have entrance animations and exit animations. So if we wanted to stylize this a little more, we can do one of those. And these are the same animations that you might be familiar with if you've ever played around with motion effects. So we can do that on entrance and exit if we choose to. There's also just some general settings. These are just the title and the status of the pop-up, and then the preview settings. So you can actually select what it looks like on a specific page if you choose to. This is nice if you are setting up it to display on a specific page instead of displaying on every single page. You can set that up as well. If we go over to the style tab, there's a few more settings related to the pop-up as well. So we can change the background of the pop-up. We can change the overlay. So if we don't want the overlay to be as dark or a different color, we can adjust that in here. So you can see I'm kind of making that a little bit lighter. I can change the color as well if I wanted to. So lots of really cool options. And then the close button, we have the option to customize that a bit as well. So we can say we want it on the inside or the outside of the pop-up. If it's on the outside, it kind of goes off the screen into the corner. It doesn't always show up on here though, but when it's actually being viewed, it will show up that way. And then we can change the position of it as well. So we can move this around on the vertical or horizontal axis to give a little more customization. We can change the color of it if we want to as well. So I can make this blue. I can change it to any color that I want, and I can also change the hover color as well. So if I hover over the close button, it now changes to that gray color. And we can also change the background color to make it a little more stylized. So if I change that, it would look a little bit different as well. On hover, you can see now it has kind of this little box. We can change the size of it by just moving this slider. So like I said, there's tons of customizations, very similar to what you would be used to seeing in Elementor. So I hope that you can play around with it and come up with some really cool ideas for pop-ups. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.